Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting of Wednesday, December 18th, 2019. Can I have the roll call, please?
Peg Coniff. Present. Salem Derby.
Present.
Omar Gomez.
Present.
J.P. Kaczynski.
Here.
Bill Lynch. Joe McCoy.
Here.
Tom Peake.
Here.
Dan Rist.
Here.
Owen Zarek.
Present.
Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can I have the motion for the approval of the minutes of December 4th, 2019? Second. Motion a second for the December 4th minutes. All those in favor? Aye.
Abstain?
One abstention. Any no? Motion still passes. I'm going to go a little bit out of order, actually. We're way ahead of time. So communications from elected officials, boards, and committee. I'm going to come back to public speak time right before the rules and government rules and regulations. So anyone, Councilor Zarek?
Just want to make a quick announcement. Our fourth annual, I'm happy to say that, Hanukkah celebration will be held at the Boardwalk this Sunday at 5 p.m. It's the first night of Hanukkah, so I invite all of you to attend. It's a non-denominational celebration, interfaith celebration, and happy to bring it back another year. And I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I'll just do it now anyways. So, President McCoy, it's your last meeting.
Yeah?
What's that? You're going to do something at the end? Oh, I have something. I'll do it at the end then. So, President McCoy, I'm going to do something at the end that I brought for you. This is my own personal tribute.
I understand that there's...
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. So, President McCoy, thus concludes.
Okay, thank you very much. Perfect. We do have a communication from the mayor's office that on January 8th, 2020, there is going to be a celebration recognizing employees who have celebrated milestone anniversaries in 2019. So I assume that will happen during the general meeting. Is that correct, the mayor? Okay, so be sure to thank these long-term employees we have in our city. Mayor communications, I believe we're up to.
A quick reminder that the State of the City is January 2nd at 6 p.m. in these chambers, and we'll have some light refreshment afterwards in these chambers to celebrate the whole day of swearing in and our new council, mayor, and school committee. I do want to mention very proudly that it has been a banner week for Easthampton in the news. I feel our Google algorithm just rising into the positive, with the fire department getting 2 grants, one for $2,400 and then the other for just under $7,000 around for equipment that protect our firefighters against cancer, which is alarming in the fire service. One of the grants that we received, a gear washer, is a shared piece of equipment with Southampton, and we've done that in the past, so it's nice to work together with another community. The police department received $12,000 for traffic safety, including additional patrols. If you saw the article, it didn't say Easthampton in the headline, but the article was all our own Chad Alexander quoted, and I liked his point, very blunt, about this is not about hammering down on people. It's about making sure people are safe. And when you look at those grants and number of tickets and how our police force negotiate with drivers that need to do a little better but are not completely unsafe under the influence, it's a great grant to get. It really helps. MassWorks grant, of course, for Route 10, very exciting. The school bid underbid by about $5 million. The contract has actually been fully executed, and the execution date is December 4th. So in the article, I wasn't sure if it had been executed by the state, and it has. So we have our first pre-construction meeting with Fontaine and the school building committee and superintendent's office representatives tomorrow, just to kind of set a schedule of what construction looks like. And it's very probable that we will see, my phone be shut off, we will see some construction activity on the White Brook Middle School site this winter. Nothing huge. And then my second favorite quote of the wonderful press we've gotten was the superintendent saying that in the spring, when you kind of see the building, there'll be a groundbreaking with shovels and kids. I mean, who doesn't like shovels and kids? So we'll get you that date as soon as it's scheduled. Our housing production, our housing needs and production RFP has been filled. The winning RFP was the Barrett Group. I have one copy of just their proposal. We'll get it up on the website. Very excited. They were extremely excited to get it. Judy Barrett is the principal and managing member of Barrett Planning Group, and a nice flourish on the cake here is it's a certified women-owned business enterprise. And they did a really great job, not only with visuals, but helping us with actually ordinance language and giving us a head start. And for doing that within the proposal warmed my heart, because I'm just seeing less legal fees. So you guys can take a peek at this. All the proposals were really great. We were really happy with the proposals that come through. The Just Trying It, the triathlon for kids, sent us a letter in Park and Rec thanking us for our help, but that they almost raised $25,000 for Bay State Medical Center. They're coming back. They had about 100 kids. It was really cool. I'll just add that to the thing. The state has added a specific web page and tool for state-based grants across all of their secretariats. Ashley worked with the state and my office, so if you wanted to in your email, city email, you can get those updates of every time a grant comes up. Every employee in the city will be able to add in that Google Calendar link, so that it's really quite great. I have a kind of a color, kind of walks you through how it works. I was very fortunate to be able to work on this tool with the Lieutenant Governor and Governor's team as a part of the municipal task force, and it's great. I encourage you to check it out. I just got a note today about a grant that I didn't know it existed, so that's awesome. And then we have traffic on One Ferry. So you might have gotten some calls on traffic, and just a quick update from my office. So we met with the contractor today to go over the issues. The police chief and Sergeant Scribner with us, as well as our city engineer, director Joe Pipchinsky, about what has happened, what can happen, the re-signing of that area, but most importantly, what happens in the spring. And in the spring, it's substantial excavation. So they're finishing up what they're doing now, and then they move into the site for a retaining wall. That will not affect traffic like it is now, but come spring, we can have some pretty intense construction on Ferry Street, Lovefield, and Pleasant for about 4 months. And so we're looking at some possibilities of maybe closing Ferry Street and then diverting traffic, detouring, figuring out how we can get the traffic flowing still into the park. But we'll keep you updated. We're putting together a plan right now with our consultant, who is Paul Frugel, and working with Diane Rossini, and then we'll get it out to public safety and figure it out how we're doing. And then I did the tax rate memo that went out. I wasn't here, but I just wanted to mention, and if there are any questions now or in the meeting, or you'd like to come, you would want to invite me to finance to talk through that, I'm happy to do that. And then the school bid memo that also went out that just walked through the different bids and how that all came out and what the surplus is and any technical questions that I can answer or go back to our OPM, Colliers, who's overseeing it for us and get answers about the numbers. The numbers are big. My last item is just I was at conferences, one in New Jersey, and presented around, from a mayor's perspective, the rollout of retail cannabis delivery and social consumption in New Jersey. Really very interesting. It was filmed, and I think I will write a follow-up article, and we'll have a couple conversations with ordinance and rules and just the experience, because you guys started way before I did. It also, we made some nice connections. I made nice connections with some of the retailers and growers in New Jersey about coming and visiting or taking a look at Western Mass, specifically Easthampton, for some ancillary businesses that are connected to cannabis. And then I was in San Antonio with the Kauffman Foundation and the National League of Cities City Innovation Project. And as a result of that, if you go to mysidewalk.com/entrepreneurship and scroll down, it's every state in the country that is, and the cities who have participated and have been brought to the next level, like Easthampton. We are only one of 3 cities in Massachusetts that is listed. Click on Easthampton and it'll start walking you through our data dashboard that we will start customizing probably in the first quarter of 2020. So about employment.
Can you give the site again?
mysidewalk.com/entrepreneurship.
Thank you.
And that, and then scroll, at first it just looks like a whatever, scroll down and you'll see all the states, and then just click on Easthampton. Yeah, the others, Boston and New Bedford are the other 2 cities, so we've started to populate it and we'll start to customize it, and certainly, would love suggestions about data that people would like to see, and My Sidewalk scrubs the data for us and cross-references it with different databases. So right now it's free, so I like that. It's one of my favorite words.
Additional questions from Mayor? Councilor Sarah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Mayor LaChapelle.
Councilor Sarah.
A hearty congratulations to you and your department and all the other departments with all these fantastic grants that the city's received. It's really great to see, and it might be specious reasoning, but I've noticed that we happen to be in an era where we're passing a lot of resolutions, and you're also receiving a lot of grants, and I'm wondering if that means we need to pass more resolutions to get more grants.
Well, sir, I would never
probably-
tell the legislative branch of government exactly what to do. I certainly am willing to give some strong suggestions and can get a memo to the next.
There seemed to be a direct relationship,
yeah.
but I digress.
I will say, and I should have made it more clear and have been able to do it with a couple of the interviews we've done on the radio and with TV. I think when you look at these grants and how they're coming across all departments, there's really not one city employee, regardless of their position, who hasn't given up a little time or taken on a little extra or supported another department to get through those grants. And then, of course, once you get the check, the work really begins. And it's been a real team effort and very impressive. Warms my heart, seriously.
I have a real question, though.
I defer to the chair.
No. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
With the ongoing development of the Highway Business District, and we're seeing, River Valley Market and Cumberland Farms before it. And
Yeah.
Then it sounds like a plan for more robust development along that corridor. Is there any plan, and this might be a better question for the planner, but I don't know if you know, is there any plan to develop more of a bike-friendly lane on O'Neill Street to connect the rail trail?
Yeah, I mean, yes, there is, and we actually have a couple of studies that talk about how to do that. The condition of the road, it kind of helps. Director Pipchinsky will tell you it's helpful if the road is falling apart because there are different pots of money. So O'Neill Street's in pretty good condition, but it's wide enough. So we would probably look to a smaller part of complete street projects, or a safe route to school if we could figure that out, because it's supposed to connect the whole city. But I'm not going to, it's not in our top priorities. And the way the state ranks these projects, especially right now, it's not. Like, we have a greater need, but it's an obvious standout of it should be, we got what we could with the MassWorks to make it a little more bike and pedestrian friendly for that part, but to get across and down O'Neill it's an issue. We know that.
Again, congrats with all the
Thank you.
grants. That's really important for our community. Just following up on Councilor Zaret with regard to bike lanes and pedestrians,
Yeah.
I have to say something about Northampton Street and the pedestrian walkway there.
Yep.
I invite anyone to, well, actually, I really hope you don't have to walk on that street, because that is something, and I would point out that maybe that would be a high priority in the near future, especially on the west side of the street, from West Street outward. It's a very short bit of sidewalk, but it's treacherous.
It's a very complicated piece of road, and requires a lot of taking. And my phone's
I'm thinking
losing
just
this meeting.
if only the sidewalk could be improved.
Yeah.
That would
It's-
be. and
it's hard to just do
Spring
the-
is
the
coming
sidewalk.
soon.
Yeah,
and
it,
just
and not
wanted to
impossible.
advocate
Certainly
for
not
that.
saying no. And I wonder if it's not on our complete, that 110 project list, if it's not on that list. I know some stuff is out there. We're going to have to look at really a bigger solution there. I mean, starting at the Rotary and going up, and it would start with feasibility money and trying to look at that. I mean, if there were to be another big development, I will go on the record now and would look for a community benefit agreement for as that development, whatever it may be. There's a couple of pieces of land now I notice for sale around traffic study, but also traffic mitigation for the larger stretch. I think we all know now to piecemeal it doesn't really work. But that's my first pot of money I would go for. But I agree. I see people walking on and now with the snow, it's treacherous. It's treacherous. Yes.
Any other questions for the mayor? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Rist.
I would move to open the public hearings, Mr. President.
We have motion second to open public hearings. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes. As I said, we're going to come back to public speak time once we get through public hearings. This is Councilor Gomez, is that right?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Last time when Councilor Lynch bring forward the ordinance, this council asked for extra documentation, and I pretty sure we did everything the council asked for. One was sending copy of the state law, the Councilor Lynch did. They send it by email, but the way we have a copy in paper here. The other one was having the police chief here, and the third one was bring it to the mayor and see if the mayor was in favor of it. I have to admit that I did it. I bring it to the mayor, but I didn't ask her if she was agree or not, because I think it's a separation of power between us and the mayor, and I just bring it to her to show her and be aware that we were working on it, but I didn't ask her if she was in favor or not. But she's here. If you want to talk about it, she have her chance to talk if she wants. But basically, that's what it is. I don't know if you guys have any question, but we have the police chief here.
Councilor Rist?
I have a question for the chief, if you might come up.
Good evening, councilors.
Hello.
Chief, I was concerned about how we enforce this. We have a fine of $150, and I understand from Councilor Gomez that takes precedence. If we give out a ticket for a violation of this ordinance, that $150 comes to the city rather than the state, which is the other law. But I am wondering, I don't suppose a crosswalk guard can take a picture of somebody doing something. That's not allowed, right?
No.
It's like a citizen's arrest. So how do we enforce this? I mean, crosswalk guards are kind of employees. I don't know if there's a way to make them able to do that. Probably not, but I'm just curious. How are we going to
So
enforce it?
I'll unpack your questions. The idea of a videotaping a violation is very similar to there's some movement in the legislature for traffic cameras for that purpose, but currently in Massachusetts, you have to be a police officer in your presence to write a moving
You
violation.
have to be there, okay.
So that's one. Two, the crosswalk, the crossing guards, extremely important job. They do fall under the auspices of the police department. However, they have no police powers. They can document, and they call us on the regular for people that violate.
Maybe just one?
No, she's not alone. There's many that call. And we will do follow-ups. They'll get us a plate. We'll do follow-ups with those people. They'll bang on the door and let them know that you didn't get away with it. We're here. We're telling you, you got to be cognizant of the kids in the crosswalks. But as far as the crossing guards writing violations or cameras or traffic cameras, I think we're a bit out. And again, I know there's some chatter in the legislature about it. I don't think it's getting a whole lot of movement, but Rep. Carey can probably speak to that better than I can. I know that we, the chiefs, have pushed some stuff forward, but I think it's way down on the list of priorities.
I just want to follow up. I like the idea that they can call you, tell you that this guy violated, and you knock on their door. That, to me, is a great way to at least give warnings out and make people aware. They may not even be aware that they did it.
Oh, and that happens quite frequently.
And I'm very happy to hear that. I think that'll help a lot, and now we have an ordinance. If you happen to be there, giving out some tickets, it's always,
Oh, yeah.
to me, a good...
And that dovetails nicely into our traffic safety grant. Whereas, I don't have to tell the council that our patrol force is very busy. So these extra grants, these extra patrols are above and beyond what our normal patrols are. These are added patrols that we put on specifically for specific enforcement, like distracted driving or crosswalk violations. So we will have these cars set up, or not even cars, officers in plain clothes trying to cross the street with a car up the street
Oh,
to
yeah?
stop.
They can
Oh
do
yeah,
that?
oh yeah, we do that all the time. So that's part of this traffic grant. Will help assist in some of that. And then lastly, as far as the fee schedule goes with regards to the ordinance versus the Mass General laws, the officers always have the discretion to write either one. They do it with speeding all the time. Sometimes they'll write the full boat to the state, but more often than not, they'll write the city ordinance, which is a lesser fine, but it also helps my officers gain appreciation from the motoring public, because my officers will tell them, I could have written you under the state law, which would have cost you $300. Instead, I'm writing you under the city ordinance for $100. So essentially, I'm giving you a break, and the motorists are generally always pleased with that. There's almost no appeals with city ordinances because of that. So I'm always a big fan of having the ordinance fee schedule be less than the state, really selfishly for the image of my police department.
Chief, do you know, I don't know if I watch too much crime shows on TV, but is there such a thing as private citizen deputization in Massachusetts? And if so, is there a procedure, or does that not even exist?
It does not exist.
Too much TV.
At best, at best, under a felony situation, you could, and it never happens, but you could do what they refer to as a citizen's arrest, which inevitably would just be assisting the police till the police got there. And there's some constable language which is antiquated, and as you know, I sit on the Mass Chiefs Legislative Committee, and one of the things we have a full court press on right now at the legislature is the abolishment of significant powers to the constables, and what they can and can't do criminally. And you don't have to look far. You could do a Google search in Massachusetts of constables, and there's all kinds of news media out east where constables are doing raids on houses. So.
Do I see Councilor Peak?
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Chief. I guess the one thing that I still have a little bit of a hang up on is I do totally appreciate the sort of community relations philosophy that you have here, that you hit them with a smaller ticket and they'll appreciate that, and it helps build trust. But given that this is an offense that routinely kills people in the United States, does $150 seem a little low? I
Well-
mean, what other activity causes this many fatalities a year that has like a penalty this small?
Well, conversely, Counselor, the state fine is only $50 more. So I guess to your point, maybe the legislature should be looking at making that a $500 fine to get the point across. So I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. But for the sake of $50, in my own personal opinion, the difference isn't enough where I get more out of the less $50 than I would even the $200 from a community policing and community bridge building perspective with my officers in motor vehicle. But you are right, because so the document that I handed out was basically abbreviated version of the state law, but it kind of breaks it down. It's kind of cop-proof, if you will. But one of the things that I wanted to highlight in here, which you're 100% right, Councilor Peak, the number of pedestrians struck by motorists nationwide has increased 19%, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And clearly there's a percentage of that it results in death, for sure. And the next line says increased police vigilance is important, which it is. But respectfully, I don't know that the $50 and the fine fee would make that much of an impact. I think if it was $500, you can't drive around with a beer open container. You're going to get written $500 fine for that.
Sure.
But if you miss somebody in a crosswalk, if you hit them, obviously there's criminal sanctions, clearly.
Sure.
But if you miss them, it's a $200 fine. So I agree with you.
I don't suppose we could raise a fee that's higher than the state.
That we can't do.
No, that's true.
Okay, Councilor Riss?
I was just going to point that out so the public hears it very well. We cannot go beyond what the state fines for anything. We can only go up to, we could do $199.99.
You could do 200 or 205, whatever it is.
Yeah, but I like the notion, 150 gives them a message, and like what you're doing.
And if I may, again, to that end, one of the things that I've had, we've had discussions in Public Safety Subcommittee with Chairman Gomez, is our fee structure for our municipal fines really we need to sit down and go over and take a good look at it. The majority of the fines are $50, speeding's $100, but not to open the Pandora's box of parking, but parking tickets are only $20. And I say only $20 because what we've run into at the boat ramp this summer, and if I'm going off task, Chairman, just give me the gavel. But what we found is people are parking their trucks and boat trailers wherever they want, because they're launching their boat essentially for $20. Because we'll go down and put a $20 ticket on. They don't care because it's cheaper than launching at Brunel's or. So one of the things that I know we're in discussions, or at least starting discussions, is our fee schedule with regard to our city ordinances.
Councilor Coniff?
And I know this is a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. When you write, because it wouldn't be me, when you write the tickets, you specifically on the ticket put, in this case, it would be violation of section 168 of the Easthampton blah, 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 or MGL, whatever. You put that on the ticket, differentiating.
There are two different forms.
Oh, okay. Even
No,
better.
wait. No, I take that back. Not for this particular. No, I'm sorry. I know it was. It is the same. It is the same uniform citation. We write it under the city ordinance, section 1-68, or we would write it under 8911, which is the Mass General Law. It'd be one or the other, but both still go through the same process through the court.
Okay.
Councilor Kwasinski?
Just a quick comment with regard to the boat launching and the parking tickets that are cheaper than
I
going
shouldn't
to
have.
a marine. Just, I would think that we would be able to set a specific fee for a specific location that would be appropriate and not necessarily apply that same fee to the rest of the city.
That would be up to the
Just under
council. I mean,
consideration for discussion later.
That's a legislative move. What I would add, this is for a subcommittee, but I would advocate down the road is first, second, third. First time, second time, third time you're getting a ticket and you're getting towed. years ago, we used to have major problems on Shop Row. Some of the councils have been around for a while. Remember, we used to get complaints and calls all the time for people overstaying their welcome on Shop Row, and we would ticket them the first 2 times, and by the 3rd time, we wound up ticket and towing them because they've had plenty of fair warning. So, but again, that's for subcommittee.
Sure. Okay. Council Rist?
Just another comment. As I understand it, or a question, speeding fines or speeding tickets or this tickets that are within the city, that the city is issuing rather than the state law, do they go to the DOT and to the registry so that they're
Yes.
moving
Yep.
violation and they could affect your insurance? They
Yes.
will affect your insurance.
Yes, and that's why they're
So that's another.
and that's why they're in the same
thing.
form.
Okay.
Additional questions for the chief? Okay. Oh, Councilman Zare.
I don't know if it's a question as much as a statement. I mean, I think that this is great. I really appreciate Councilor Lynch bringing this forward. I had the opportunity to read the state law because there was some question about the language and doing our due diligence, and I think this all makes sense. And I think it's a great response to creating municipal legislation in response to what was a tragedy on Cottage Street. And I guess, so this isn't a question, it's more of a statement, but I think we all really here in this room, in this council, really also need to think about how we can kind of participate in a campaign. I don't know if this is something for the CRC to really put the word out there that stopping for pedestrians saves lives. And I think that the safe walks people have done it, and we've talked about it a lot. And I think maybe as a city we need to be more thoughtful about more of an organized campaign to that extent. So that's wasn't a question. I'm sorry, Chief, but
No,
thanks for your due diligence.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Mayor, do you have any comments, or just unless someone has a question for you, do you have anything to add?
I appreciate the conversation Councilor Gomez and I had today around this, and he gave me the documents to review. You know, it's a legislative function, and I will weigh in if, you know, so I think it's in the interest of the city at subcommittee. And at this point, the conversation where it is subcommittee has acted, and it's a glaring safety issue around the country, especially in Easthampton, as more and more people are walking, and not just downtown, but all around the city. So,
Great. Any questions from Mayor? No. Okay. Anyone from the public who'd like to address the council on this public hearing related to ordinance? No. Okay. Councilor Gomez, I'll entertain a motion then.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just didn't know if Councilor Lynch wanted to wait since he drafted it. But that's not for me.
I mean, I just came in, but
You want to do it?
I'll do it, yeah.
Okay, let me say something first.
There's a lot of traffic. Apologize.
Hope you didn't crosswalks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted your name.
Sure.
First.
All right. I move to amend the city ordinances Appendix A, Traffic Rules and Order, Article 7, Operation of Vehicles, by adding the new section 168 entitled Marked Crosswalks Yielding Right-of-Way to Pedestrians, penalty as provided to councilors for this meeting and dated December 3rd, 2019.
Second.
A motion and a second to add the section 168 related to crosswalks and yielding right-of-way to pedestrians. Additional questions or comments on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. Councilor Rist?
Mr. President, I move that the public hearings be closed. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. I think we left off at standing, public speak time. So what we're going to do here, since I know there are a bunch of you here for the Medicare for All resolution, this would be your opportunity, and then we're going to have rules and regulations immediately follow this part of the public speak time. But just in case there's anyone here who would like to do public speak time for topics other than Medicare for All, why don't you go first? And just state your name and address, and then we'll have Medicare for All follow, and then the subcommittee.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm Marge Prendergast. I'm the president of the Board of Corporators for the Emily Williston Memorial Library. And Mr. Peak, I think you're sitting in a wonderful little spot. So if you could pass those around so I don't get to look at the camera. I just want to pop in and say, that we've been doing our own version of fundraising. We've been working really hard. The Party with a Purpose was outstanding. Owen was able to make it. The mayor was there. Lindsay was there. It was such a great time. We partnered with the Therapeutic Equestrian Center, and we raised some really good money and really good awareness for both organizations. This is our annual ask. The back page is an opportunity. If you're looking for a sustainable membership, you can send that into the library, and $20 a month gives us $240. We get 1,000 people doing that. We have $240,000 in a year. And I will still be here saying, guys, you want to increase your funding? Because we do so many wonderful things at the library. But we are trying really hard to be the partner with you. We're not just leaning on you. We're standing next to you, nudging you. That's why I show up. I'm going to nudge you. But I want you to know we're trying really hard to create our own awareness and our own fundraising. The top sheet, okay, it's that other bank, but they're very good to us here in town. Florence Bank. If you are a account holder there and you drop it off with our name on it, we get a vote. Something to consider. So there's different ways to help. The volunteering, the support that you give when you sit in council, when the mayor says, well, I don't know if I can give more, and you're harping for us, I really appreciate it. So I'm here to say thank you, happy holidays, and please consider us in your giving. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Is it my imagination, or is this on Amazon Smile? Or is it, Amazon has a, .com has a section for, as you order, you can name a
I do
charity?
believe we are part of it,
Because
yes.
I'm pretty sure I've named you as
Thank
a
you.
charity.
Name us again.
How do you, like, do you get money from them, or is it?
Yes, we get a portion of the sales.
Okay, do you know how much that is?
I do not know.
Okay.
I can get that answer for you.
I would
then.
love it, yeah.
All righty.
And I think anyone out there who is not familiar with that, that is a great opportunity. Pretty painless, because you're ordering stuff from Amazon anyway.
It's
And you can just-
a lot out there.
Yeah, and you can just name,
The Emily
Library.
Williston Memorial Library.
yeah.
So thank you very much for doing that, and I will get you that answer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to address the council other than what's on the Medicare referral?
Hi, my name is Patrick Baruff. I live at 107 Briggs Street in Easthampton, right here. As all of you know, or maybe some of you don't know in the audience, this is Joe McCoy's last official city council meeting as the city council president, right? Good. Right?
Yes.
Right, good. I thought it'd be a great time to use a few minutes of the allotted public speak time to say a few things about Joe, to have it forever on the official public record here in Easthampton and not simply posted on Facebook. And of course, I chose this portion of the meeting because technically, if I say anything crazy, he's not allowed to really reply to it. Don't worry, Joe, I'm not going to say anything crazy, just to be clear. Although, totally off my script, I think, Chief, that he might be looking to be appointed as a police officer for a short period of time, so that might be something we can do. I tried to think back to when I officially met Joe McCoy, and the best I could come up with was it was during or sometime around the great chamber and city sign debates of 2007. Good times, good times. Salem remembers those, I think. He was willing to hear what I had to say, as at the time I was the vice president of the Greater Eastham Chamber of Commerce. In a very short time after that meeting with Joe, the meeting with Joe went very well, and a very short time after that, we became really good friends, and I'm very happy to be associated with you. If you Google Joe McCoy, you will see stories about what he has done for our city over the last 13 or 14 years-ish, somewhere in that time frame, serving as the vice president for 4 terms and the president of the council for the last 8 years. Some of those things that are highlighted included the passage of the ordinance that says the city officials will not condone, tolerate any form of discrimination or intolerance in our city. You can find many other things related to how Joe has been a champion for the city and for the people he represents. Back to Facebook for a second. Today I posted, and neither you or Stan could see it because I blocked you from there. I posted a thing just saying that I was going to be up here using this public speak time to talk about you a little bit, and I asked if anybody wanted to say anything nice about you.
Uh-oh.
They did, it turns out. So I'm gonna read a couple of them. I know I only have allotted like 4 minutes or something like that, but I'm gonna go through this. Terrence McCarthy said, Joe, as a proud native of Easthampton, now living in Dixie, I know you are the real McCoy. Lindsay Elise said, I've had the pleasure of working with Joe for the last year in a variety of ways. He's a jack of all trade. His knowledge is invaluable. It is clear he put all of his energy into all that he does for the city and for his goats. More importantly, he does it with grace and compassion. While I am losing an amazing coworker, I'm very happy to say I've gained an amazing friend. Rayma Hutchinson said, I want to thank Joe for his years of fair and respectful leadership, always allowing for discussion and comments. You're a good man. Linda Capon said, congratulations, Joe. I believe your reputation speaks for itself. Your service to Easthampton will be missed. Best wishes on your next adventure. And last, Ed Murray from the Easthampton Police Department, actually. He said to remind you about that he'll always remember, as will the lady who called them on one Sunday morning when they thought they heard someone yelling for help because it was really hot out, and it turns out it was your goats. Everyone was safe, but he said he will always remember that, and he got a little chuckle out of that. You did get a bunch of other likes, and I'm sure there'll be a couple of more comments. I know there were a couple as we were sitting here that were added to that, so I'll let you see those. Back to the Google search for you. One of the things I found, there are a few articles, and there are a lot of articles about the campaign and what's happening when Joe was running that popped up. And Joe says the same thing that one of the things that you said, I think really stands true to who you are as a city councilor. Joe said, in a couple of actually times that he ran, I think my temperament, my organization, and my ability to be objective are reasons I would be a good city councilor. Joe, I will say you have been more than a good city councilor. You have been one of the great city councilors we've had here in our town. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your blood, your sweat, your tears, and all the things that you've given our city. Thank you.
No more of this. Where are we?
Public speak.
Oh yeah, public speaking. Okay, so now anyone else have anything besides me? Onto Medicare for All. So this is the opportunity to talk Medicare for All. This is immediately going to be followed by the subcommittee report by Councilor Peak and Zaret relating to this resolution. So anyone who wants to speak to this topic, this is your opportunity.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Great to be here. Dan Carey, 6 Newell Street, State Representative for the 2nd Hampshire District. Feels kind of funny to come speak to you about a resolution because the resolution says send this to your state representative. But I'm looking forward to getting a copy of this. Medicare for All is very important. It's something I've supported from the beginning. Beyond that, we had a non-binding ballot question recently where the Easthampton voters overwhelmingly said we want our state rep and our state senator to support this. So it's easy for me to support it, and it's a great idea. But I think as Easthampton's elected officials, that question was addressed at me, but we're all doing our jobs by taking what the voters have told us they want and working hard to deliver it. So there's a lot of people who are going to get into the nitty-gritty and the details, and I've spoke with some of you, and I know at subcommittee you got into the actual legislation and what it means and how it's comprised. I'm happy to do that again here tonight, but I want to make sure we have time to hear from everybody. But I just wanted to be here and lend my support and be a vocal champion for this issue.
Representative, can I ask you one quick question? My biggest, I think, I'm completely fine with where we want to go. The big question for me is how we're going to get there. And I missed the subcommittee meeting, but I did watch the video, and it seems like it covers a lot. Have these bills been independently audited? How is this going to be affordable? I mean, do we know this is going to work?
So right now, this bill as written has had a public hearing before the Joint Committee on Healthcare Financing. And if it's reported favorably out of that committee, that should be our next step, is to advocate to that committee to report this bill out favorably. Then it will most likely go to Ways and Means or have a chair report. That hasn't happened yet to my knowledge, but that is usually part of the process.
So there still is some question mark if all the numbers would work out exactly that this bill would suggest.
What those exact numbers will be, I think, is the question mark. The way it's set up, we know it's going to mean huge savings for individuals and for municipalities and for employers.
Okay. Councilor Gomez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question about, it's about the money too. Right now in Massachusetts, if you have Medicare and you qualify for Mass Health, Mass Health paid the portion of, I think it's $140 or $135 to the federal. And it's a lot of people, they have Medicare now, they didn't qualify for Mass Health. So with Medicare for All, those people that didn't cover now, the state is going to pay for that too, or is no part of the conversation yet?
Yes, so this bill sets up the Massachusetts Healthcare Trust, and one of the things that trust is tasked with, a lot of the nitty-gritty details aren't in there yet, but one of the things, it's a 23-member trust, some appointed, some elected. One of the things that's directly in there is to work with the federal government and make sure that Medicare is covered and Mass Health and anyone who's on those things now get included in this, and those payments go right to that trust, and then that trust goes out and pays all the providers. So whether you're on Medicare or you're not. And the Medicare for All, this is just a personal sticking point for me. I think it's really single payer for all. And that sometimes that muddies the waters. We're not saying we're just going to take Massachusetts and put them in this federal program. It's more just the single payer model.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So anyway, if you could, again, well said, Councilor, Representative.
Former Councilor.
Yeah, former Councilor. So if you could just come, anyone else from the public like to come, just state your name and address for the record, and...
My name's Baxter Chandler. I live at 209 Main Street, and I was hoping to be the first one up here so that we could trick you into thinking that each one of us, instead of Medicare for All, we were going to even further and see how uncomfortable we can make you. That is not what we're doing. I've lived in Easthampton for 20 years, and I've been a social worker for over 25 years, so I want to speak to this from really a social work perspective. At the end of the day, Medicare for All, single payer, universal health care, however we want to call it, is really about addressing health care inequality and equal rights. It's been interesting as I've lived and practiced in Easthampton, or in Massachusetts, to see the evolution of healthcare coverage in Massachusetts. We are in such a different place than we were 20 years ago, for sure, as a state, and in a better place than we were 20 years ago, for sure. So we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go as a state. We certainly have a long way to go as a country when it comes to providing healthcare to our citizens. Too many people still lack access to full quality healthcare. And we as a society are really paying too much for this unequal and really lacking coverage. Who you are, how much money you have, where you live, your employment status, the color of your skin, your sexual orientation, your gender identity, all this plays into the access of whether or not you get the full range of health care. The next logical, humane, and really fiscally responsible step is universal health care, Medicare for All. We really have to settle on a term here. Making sure that every individual has access to medical, behavioral health, reproductive health care, dental care, home health, hospice, the full range that most private insurances don't cover, is really the key here. By passing this resolution, we're saying that this community is ready for this next step, and encouraging the state to follow suit, and really encouraging the rest of the country to follow suit. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Weinberger, and I live at 359 Main Street, Unit 11B in Easthampton. And I am the chair of the Easthampton Hub of Medicare for All. And I really want to thank Councilor Zarat for working with us to bring this resolution forward, and for Representative Carey's help and support. Shortly after my mother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, she learned that she was underinsured. As she was dying, my mother, who survived the Holocaust, was subject to harassing calls from creditors threatening to put a lien on her home. At a time when I was filled with grief, I had to deal with additional anxiety over how we were going to pay the bills for my mother's care after her death. Nobody, patient or family member, should have to worry about how they are going to pay for treatment during a health crisis. Yet today, too many people forego seeing their doctor, leaving prescriptions unfilled, refuse to get necessary tests, and succumb to preventable deaths because they are unable to afford costly insurance premiums, copays, deductibles, and prescription drugs. The U.S. leads the world in healthcare spending, yet by many measures, our outcomes are poor compared with other advanced countries. Massachusetts Medicare for All would provide Easthampton residents with a quality, affordable, and accessible health care that should be a human right for everyone in this country. We would no longer pay premiums, coinsurance, copayments, or deductibles. Instead, according to the currently proposed legislation, employees would pay a 2.5% payroll tax. For those who cringe when they hear the word tax, I would ask you to think about how much money each of you spend on your health care each year. For most people, a 2.5% payroll tax is far less than what most of us pay. Employers would pay a payroll tax of 7.5%, exempting the first $30,000 of payroll. If you lose your job for any reason, you would still be insured. You can keep your health care provider if you choose to, without any restrictive tiers, networks, or panels. On top of that, you'll receive better coverage, which includes such benefits as eyeglasses, hearing aids, home health care, free prescriptions, and long-term care. Sound too good to be true? Medicare for All works because there would be huge administrative savings, and the pool is large enough to generate funds and provide bargaining power to significantly reduce costs. The Easthampton hub of Western Mass Medicare for All is working to make Massachusetts become the first state to provide its residents with single-payer health care. But it won't happen if this bill doesn't get out of committee. Last November, 76% of Easthampton voters chose to vote yes on a non-binding resolution instructing their legislators to pass Medicare for All legislation. Passing this resolution today will let our legislators and the governor know that the City Council of Easthampton supports an act establishing Medicare for All in Massachusetts. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Levinson. I'm the co-convener of Western Mass Medicare for All, a grassroots organization advocating for single-payer health care in Massachusetts. The resolution before you tonight was initiated by the concerned residents of our Easthampton hub, some of whom are here tonight. Before I read the rest of my remarks, I do just want to say that the financing in the proposed bill is based on research done by Jerry Friedman, who is a professor of economics at UMass. Healthcare costs rise quickly, so updated research would be something we would need to do. We would like to get that money appropriated to do an independent study again. We do know in general, though, that all the research that's been done does show that the savings are there, that the general principles behind the financing plan are accurate, and that includes the Perry study that was done at the national level, also by our UMass folks in the Perry Institute. So that's just kind of a general response. All of us are aware of the increasing problem of healthcare access and cost in the Commonwealth. Despite the gains made under Romney Care and the ACA, nearly 200,000 people are uninsured in our state. And many more people, even with insurance coverage, are unable to get health care when they need it because of high deductibles, copays, and other out-of-pocket expenses. At the municipal level, budgets strain under the rising cost of premiums for city and school district employees. According to the fiscal year 2019 information that we received from the city, Easthampton spent about $4.6 million, or 23% of payroll, for health benefits for its current and retired employees. Under the proposed Medicare for All legislation, all benefits would be paid through a public health care trust, not by employers. Healthcare would no longer be part of the collective bargaining process, and the city would no longer bear the burden of administering those benefits. Instead, the city would pay a tax of 7.94% of payroll as their contribution to the trust. For Easthampton, in fiscal year 2019, that would have meant a savings of nearly $3 million. In addition, the city would also save the lion's share of its OPEB liability. That, of course, is the other post-employment benefits, which are mainly health insurance. The burden of accounting for that large future liability and pressure to invest money now in a dedicated OPEB trust would be lifted. And finally, the city would be relieved of the social costs of health stress among its uninsured and underinsured residents. Medicare for All in Massachusetts would not only guarantee secure quality lifetime coverage to every resident of Easthampton, regardless of their employment status, it would also save the city a significant amount of money and stabilize this volatile part of the budget. Similar resolutions have already passed in Northampton, South Hadley, and Holyoke, as well as Boston and Cambridge and half a dozen towns in Franklin County. Many more will follow. Thank you very much for your thoughtful consideration of this resolution, which we believe to be clearly in the best interest of Easthampton's health and its financial well-being. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this thing on?
It is.
Oh. Nancy Stenberg, 17D Main Avenue. I was busy all day and I didn't see Pat's post, so I'm going to take a personal point of privilege. I moved to Easthampton because I knew Joe and Stan, and so I just wanted to say that, and I like the way this place is governed, and government is a big thing for me. So I don't have any statistics. I'm just here to bring you up to date on my personal story. I'm the storyteller. So I was on Mass Health, but then I got a job, and the job came with insurance, and it's the GIC insurance that you guys are paying for. Now I know why it's so expensive. So now I have to pay deductibles, and I have to get referrals for doctors that I've been going to for months and years. So my new favorite friend is Jan, the referral person. And seriously, Nicole, this is why you're paying so much for this stuff, because it's a nightmare. Anyway, so that's my story. Medicare for All is what we need. Thank you very much.
Nancy, I have a question for you.
Yes,
since
sir.
we go back as activists and stuff, and
Yep.
I've always thought of you as quite the collective bargaining activist.
Yep.
And the previous statement that this would remove it from collective bargaining, the experience I think
Yes.
most of the council has had when it comes to healthcare changes, even minor, it is a pretty rigorous discussion, to say the least. Do you think this is something the collective bargaining will say, yeah, sure?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're talking a lot about the Taft-Hartley Act right now, which and healthcare always comes up over and over and over again because, everybody says, well, what about those, healthcare plans that we bargained for so effectively, when we talk about Medicare for All as being something that, people are and unions are, a little leery of because they have, a lot of unions have really good health plans. So, yeah, that's something that is of concern to everybody. But as you know, when you look at paying a tax instead of paying the deductibles, that's when they start to say, well, it might not be so bad to lose our, Cadillac health plans if everybody's getting the same thing and we're paying a payroll tax instead of the deductibles and everything. So,
Okay.
okay. Thanks.
Thanks. Thank you.
Stan Diamond. I live at 14 Paul Street here in Easthampton. I would like to follow up on that collective bargaining question and point out that with Medicare for All, the cost of medical insurance and the quality of medical insurance is no longer a collective bargaining issue. And the money that had previously been spent by the city providing health care premiums for their employees, that can enter the collective bargaining in the manner of increasing salaries and other benefits with no additional costs to the city because the medical costs are taken out of the equation. I personally am currently on Medicare. I have also had the pleasure of having excellent medical care while working, and I much prefer current Medicare to dealing with the insurance companies in the past, and I look at federal Medicare for all as the ultimate solution, which will protect everyone in the country and allow quality health care at affordable costs. And I am also one of the founders of the Easthampton Neighbors Association, which is geared toward helping seniors age in place comfortably and successfully. And having Medicare for all means seniors no longer have to worry about how they're going to pay their medical bills if they are underinsured right now, if they're at risk of having their houses repossessed for outstanding medical bills. So I am a big advocate and a strong proponent for Medicare for all, and hope this bill passes, and then the work continues to pass it for the entire country. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public speak time like to address the council for this resolution we have in front of us? Okay, so we'll end public speak time now. So now we're starting the reports of standing committees, and I'm going to move rules and regulations to the top with Councilor Peak.
Mr. President. So yeah, we discussed this last week in rules, and we had a pretty good conversation about it, about some of the technical details involved, and sort of the political background. One fun little fact that I always have to point out when we start discussing this is that a lot of these numbers were generated by Dr. Jerry Friedman at UMass, who was my honors thesis co-chair. So I always just have to bring that up because he's a cool guy. And he's a smart guy. Yeah, so we discussed a lot, and there was a good deal of information that I think got circulated out to everyone about the sort of the technical details of the bill. Obviously, when you have something like this that is currently in committee, a lot of the exact details are subject to, to change if it doesn't die in committee, like most things that go to the state legislature do. But we do think this is, we thought this was an important thing to advance the conversation on, and perhaps more importantly, it's I think important to recognize that, in 2018, when we had our election, 76% of voters supported the legislature moving on this. This, by the way, was the same night that 55% of Easthampton voters voted for Charlie Baker. So this isn't just a fringe left thing. It actually has a pretty wide support in the community. So that's basically where we are. We voted favorably on this 2-0.
Councilor Riss?
Yes, at the meeting, I did address the proponents of the resolution and the bill regarding how our employees felt, and there is an umbrella organization that did support this, an umbrella organization regarding collective bargaining units like the MTA. They supported wholeheartedly because they would not lose, was important to me, they would not lose any benefit under this bill they currently have. They would gain the fact that their premiums, their deductibles, their co-pays are all paid for by the trust if it was established. So I don't believe any of even though they seemingly lose collective bargaining rights specific to healthcare, they do gain, they still have collective bargaining rights to salary if those healthcare costs do enter into the picture, although I don't know why. The other thing I was concerned about was seniors and what Medicare payments would have to be made. As you know, all employees have to put into, anybody employed has a Medicare tax taken out of their paycheck, as well as the employers have to pay that. That would not change because that's a federal program and we're obliged to pay it. But I'm encouraged by the fact that the Medicare Part B premiums we all pay may be able to be paid by the trust. and that all the supplemental insurance I currently have to pay, the medics and everything that seniors have to pay, would be paid by this. And this isn't a pie-in-the-sky dream, because I believe a great deal of work has been done on it. I do feel they're up against an incredible private insurance lobby that they're going to have to fight, but I see a lot of good fighters out there. I'm not worried. So I wholeheartedly support this. I would say that I agree with Dan Carey. I think the word Medicare in the bill creates some confusion with those uneducated into this, because they think, oh, they're going to establish a federal program. I think Massachusetts Universal Health Care may be a better term, or single payer somehow, because the word Medicare in there may confuse the, like me, what does this mean? I know it's a national thing that our elected officials are trying to push, a Medicare for all for the entire country, and I agree that's the way it should be listed, because Medicare is a single payer system for the country. But in Massachusetts, I don't want the voters who might have to vote on this, or anybody who wants to know what's going on, to think that we're somehow using the federal government's program to pay for our health care. No, this is a separate program, so I would like you to consider changing the name of it.
Councilor Coniff?
I have to say that a couple of things. So I work for one of the evil health insurers. I'm retiring in a couple of months, and I will say that honestly, I've been a little anxious since I'm not 65 yet, but I am going to retire, and so I have been pretty anxious about what I'm going to do when COBRA is done. And there's a gap of a couple of years that will get me to 65. So this is very exciting. I mean, it's not going to help me probably, maybe, but I did learn yesterday that miraculously I'm going to be covered by my wife, but that's a whole other topic. But I've had a lot of months of anxiety until that decision was made. But and I also am unable to vote on this tonight because I had to sign a conflict of interest 4 years ago with my employer. That said, I can debate it. I can have a conversation around it. And so one of the things that, as I read through the resolution as it is written, that concerns me, and it's not a concern so much as, do we really need to have it in there? And that's where we talk about how much the city would have saved based on 2019 fiscal numbers. I think that sounds good, and maybe we can talk about it, but to put it in the resolution when I don't feel like the numbers are fully vetted, I think we got numbers from somebody. I think you mentioned personnel, we got the numbers from personnel, but I would like to have that fully vetted and signed off that they completely agree that the numbers are all what they say, and that they would put their reputation on the fact that we would have saved $3 million. If that has all been done and they're fully on board with that, then we can leave it in. It just feels, hang on. It just feels like that might not be a necessary component to this resolution. And if you took it out, it wouldn't change anything about it. It still has the teeth. It still has all the meaning. That just, if you can do the math for me, and I got the worksheet and everything, but I still want to see all the numbers from the budget from 2019, the actuals and all of, and I think Rep. Carey said himself that it's a shifting, changing thing, and that seems like we're codifying a number that I don't feel like we're 100% sure about.
Councilor Peak?
Yeah, so I see what you're saying there, and I think I'm open to definitely putting a little bit of language to say that that's an estimate. I think that the basic math of saying, here's what we paid in healthcare, here's what we would have paid under the payroll tax subject to the firms here is pretty straightforward. But I think it's fine because the parameters could easily change during the process. So I wouldn't have a problem saying, like, we estimate that under the current things, it would save approximately, whatever, like something like that. But I do think that section is important because I don't really like being, like, we've talked a lot this last few months about resolutions and when they're appropriate and when they're not. And one thing that I think makes this very appropriate is that were this to pass, there would be, I mean, maybe it's 3 million, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 4. There'd be substantial cost savings to the city, provided that everything works out the way that it, you know, the details are in the proposal and in the packets that we got. And that to me makes it feel like this is a municipal matter that it's appropriate for us to voice an opinion on.
Yeah, it's because you know, Council Big, to me, the big elephant in the room there was your statement, provided that everything works out the way. I mean, to me, that's a big, provided that everything we have here is right. We may be really wrong. But anyway, Councilor Rist. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think taking out the specific figure is all you have to do. And I will propose an amendment that would say FY 2000 would have substantial cost savings on health coverage. What you
I would
just said.
second that.
Instead of having any figure,
Yep.
which I think is Councilor Coniff's
It
concern.
is. Yep.
We are going to have some, if this passes in any form, we're going to have substantial cost savings. So that's what I will propose whenever it's appropriate, Mr. President.
Yeah, I mean, I think once when the initial thing is, but I just must be too jaded. But I mean, no, I just, my concept of where some of this is going is groups looking at what this program will provide, and then the deficits, although the way it's described, it provides everything, which again is also concerning to me. How, I can't imagine how everything, nursing homes, is all going to be provided. I hope it does, I really hope it does, but I mean, I'm just like, I can see already that the negotiation is going to be the city to cover the, what do they call it? I mean, I'm thinking like the Medicare Part Plan B, C. I mean, I just think there's still going to be costs to the city because I think certain groups are going to say this is not the Blue Cross Blue Shield I had. So I want the city now to fix it. Again, I may be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I just such a pessimist about where a lot of these things go. But anyway, so any other comments relating to this, Councilor? Sorry.
So I could comment on a few things. And first of all, I think that's a really thoughtful comment that. You know, I do agree with Councilor Peak that I think the numbers are pretty straightforward, but if that's the biggest sticking point, I do think that with many thanks to the people who calculated this approximately $3 million savings, both yourself and President McCoy are correct that, well, maybe in the final version of this bill, it won't be exactly that. So I think I do agree when it comes time, something like of substantial cost savings or something of that sort. The other quick comment I'll make is that, you know, being someone who's on the side of watching people on a daily basis who, for whatever reason, can't, even when they have health insurance, can't afford the treatment they need, whether it be access to an MRI because they have a $500 copay to get their MRI, or you prescribe them a medication which they can't afford, or they have to go to physical therapy 3 times a week and they have a $45 copay, and so they're supposed to shell out, you know, close to $150 a week to go to 12 weeks of physical therapy. You know, what are some of the ideal things that we look at when we're selecting a healthcare plan? This goes to some degree to the collective bargaining question. So what are our premiums going to be? Well, in this case, you know, we'll be paying a premium because we'll be paying it through a payroll tax, but it will still be substantially less in terms of what's essentially coming out of our pocket, right? So you could check that off. Okay, what are some of our other costs? We talked about deductibles and copays. Well, those go away with this system. And cost of medications. Well, if everyone is on this plan, we're going to have a huge leverage with the pharmaceutical companies to tell them that in the state of Massachusetts, we are not going to tolerate unreasonable plans that are purely for profit to these pharmaceutical companies. So I would estimate that the cost of medications would potentially go down. And then other things like these ancillary issues, like I mentioned, like having to pay, you know, large copays for MRIs and ancillary services like PT, OT, et cetera. But so in terms of how this, you know, people wanting like their Blue Cross Blue Shield, this offers essentially, you know, almost an ideal access. Oh, and then healthcare network, right? So what providers do I have access to? Well, you'll have theoretically access to any provider in the state. So you won't have to say, well, I have to go to this specialist in Boston, but I have to go through a million stages of prior authorization to maybe get to see them. and it takes me 6 months, but I need to see them next week because I was just diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and I need this treatment now because I might be dead in 6 months. So there was something else I was going to say, and I'm forgetting. What was one of your questions? But so, I mean, I think, the overall cost and how will this really be cost saving? Well, you know, unfortunately right now, one of the biggest components of what we pay for in our premiums in healthcare is all of this administrative work that's being done. Now, that's an unfortunate, ugly flip side to the coin, because we do have to, and you asked about, I think a few people have asked about this too, what happens to the private insurance agency industry? There's all these people who are employed to administrate, you know, some of this paperwork we're talking about, and we have to figure out kind of what's going to happen there. But a lot of the money that we're paying for is to pay for these services, like these unnecessary authorizations and paperwork that has to be done. And so that's where a substantial amount, and the hub can correct me too if I'm wrong, but that's where a substantial amount of a lot of the costs of our healthcare is going as well. And so you remove that, a lot of that the administrative costs as well. And so that's a lot of where we'll see that cost go down to. I don't know if that answered your question, but so I agree with you. Great plan. Single payer, yes. And thank you to the hub for all their support on this.
Councilor Peak.
And just to like do my little economics thing, because I can only do that as well. I have actually read the study that backs up these cost estimates, and I'm not saying nothing would change, and I'm not saying that bringing other experts in there might be other perspectives that might lead people to tweak things here and there, but the fundamental logic behind it is sound. I mean, to whatever extent you want to just take my word for that. Yeah, this is the one thing I'm actually good at. So, you know.
Well, one of many.
Councilor Kwasinski.
I have to agree with those who have spoken earlier. I thank you for coming. Everyone should be covered equally, regardless of anything. When Mr. I guess it was Mr. Was it Baxter? Baxter was here. Baxter Chandler had talked about discrimination of any sort. That's appalling. Everyone should be cared for equally in the United States, in Easthampton, in Massachusetts. No one should have to worry about paying the bill when they're sick. I have heard that loud and clearly. That we could help with the financial health of our community, absolutely. I have one issue that just gnaws at me with the numbers, and that has to do with about instructing our representatives as to how they will vote. I think they need some further guidance. I think that the quality of care that be provided by the new universal system at least match what our current good care, our current employees receive through collective bargaining here in Easthampton. That care be extended beyond the workers in Easthampton to all the citizens of Easthampton and to the Commonwealth. And that we need to really have a little proviso in here that lends that guidance to say that's the quality of care we expect with the new system. So I'd like to offer an amendment to, as such, to say that...
We'd have to have our main motion. Yeah.
Well, I would just read what I'm thinking about.
Okay.
I'd be happy to have anybody, we can discuss it later. But it would be something now that it therefore be it resolved that the City Council of Easthampton, Mass. Supports legislation that would provide equitable, affordable, and accessible care at least equal to that currently provided to city and school district employees and retirees, and that this be extended to all residents of the city and of the Commonwealth. That's what I'm thinking, for give us kind of a baseline. If we're going to do this, this is what it needs to be for all.
Councilor Zaret.
I think that's thoughtful, but I think that implicit within the way this plan works, and let's remember too that this is a method of paying for health care. It's not health care itself, it's health care payment, right? It's access to health care. But implicit within this plan is the fact that you're basically guaranteed better care because of all the reasons that I just outlined. And I don't know if anyone from the hub has any further comments, but you're only going to expand the care you're receiving and the ability to afford the care thereof. I mean, I don't object to it, but I think that is potentially unnecessary. But certainly, you're welcome to entertain a motion when the time comes.
Council Connor?
I actually agree with you, JP. I think because of, we've talked about it in terms of we don't know how this bill's going to ultimately look when it's all said and done. And there may be pockets, I mean, equal is awesome, and I'm all about it. But there might be pockets of folks out there who are getting awesome health care at unbelievable rates. And this may actually, I don't know, it could technically maybe bump it up a little. I don't have any idea. But I think what you're saying, and I don't want to speak for you, is that whatever awesome thing the city of Easthampton employees have, that in no way get diminished by whatever this bill ends up looking like. It's just kind of a insurance clause that if they won't get anything less, then they will likely get something better. And that's all I think.
I think politically it will help out to attract more people to the legislation, because they'll be really feeling that they're guaranteed an equal system that is good, very good. And they're not going to lose something.
Now, Councilor Kwizek, are you talking about, it sound like you said city employees. What about people in Easthampton who have private insurance?
I'm not sure we can say that we're going to match the best insurance privately anywhere in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and that this plan will. But at least it will meet the criteria of equaling Easthampton's level of health insurance.
Councilor Rist?
I just want to say that this is the opinion of the council, and that both of these, the amendments that are being considered, do impact that opinion, and it's fine. But I don't think either of them would diminish the baseline, which is we support the term Medicare for all, a universal health coverage. So I have no problem with any amendment that might clarify things for any counselor or our residents, and that's fine with me.
Any additional questions or comments on this? Okay, either Council Peak, I'll entertain a motion for the resolution if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. Unless,
Or
Councilor, would you
Zare,
like to read it in since you've read it?
Sure. And then we can entertain amendments. I'd like to make a motion to accept the following resolution: City of Easthampton resolution in support of Medicare for all single-payer health care. Whereas 200,000 Massachusetts residents lack health insurance, and many more, even with insurance, are unable to access care due to high out-of-pocket costs. And whereas access to affordable, quality health care is a human right and a fundamental component of a decent and just society. And whereas a single-payer system will guarantee comprehensive medical coverage for all residents of Easthampton, regardless of socioeconomic status, and without co-pays, deductibles, or out-of-pocket expenses, and will eliminate networks and tiers that limit provider choice. And whereas the continued rise in costs of employment-based health insurance negatively affects our local economy by forcing businesses and municipalities to reduce staffing, defer raises, and hire more workers on a part-time basis. And whereas the rising cost of health care are a significant burden to Easthampton's already strapped municipal budget and to the small businesses and entrepreneurs that help keep our community thriving. And whereas the City of Easthampton in fiscal year 2019 would have saved more than $3 million on health care coverage, school district and retired employees under the proposed single-payer bill in Mass, and be relieved of the lion's share of its OPEB liability. And whereas 76% of Easthampton voters approved a single-payer ballot in November 2018, and whereas the state representative for Easthampton is a co-sponsor of the proposed state Medicare for All legislation, now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of Easthampton, Massachusetts supports legislation that would provide equitable, affordable, and accessible health care to city and school district employees and retirees, and to all other residents of the city of the Commonwealth, and be it further resolved that we support an act establishing Medicare for All in Massachusetts, Senate Bill 683, House 1194, and call on our state senator and state representative to work for its immediate passage.
Second. Okay, a motion and second for the resolution. Councilor Rist.
I move that we amend the 6th paragraph, which states, whereas the city of Easthampton FY 2019 would have, I would strike the words saved more than $3 million and add the words incurred substantial cost savings. Therefore, the paragraph would read, whereas the city of Easthampton in FY 2019 would have incurred substantial cost savings on health coverage for city, school district, etc. I move that we amend that.
Second?
Second.
Motion and second on that amendment. Any more discussion, questions on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention.
And Dan, I'll need that in writing.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, so that amendment passes. Any other amendments, Councilor Krasinski?
I move to amend the paragraph starting now, therefore be it resolved, with the following language, that the City Council of Easthampton, Mass. Supports legislation that would provide equitable, affordable, and accessible health care at least equal to the health care currently provided to the Easthampton employees and retirees. And this level of care be extended to all residents of the city and of the Commonwealth.
Second.
Okay, motion and second on the previous read amendment. Questions or comments on that one? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? One abstention? Motion still passes. Any other amendments for this resolution? Okay, so we have the two amendments. So this is now vote for the final resolution. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention. Motion, resolution passes.
And I'll have it at the next meeting for signatures.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, Joe has to sign it.
We'll find them.
Okay.
They're not going anywhere, I hope.
That's right.
Mr. Chairman.
We can move on.
No, I actually have another thing in rules.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And do you mind if I just mention something?
No, go.
First of all, again, thank you to the Western Mass, to the hub for all the work and many, many months of time. And I forgot to mention also that Representative Savadosa, First Hampshire, who is the author of this legislation, I've spoken to her and she's fully in support of this resolution, obviously, but I want to just make sure that she agrees with the language that we propose.
Council Pete?
Great. So the other thing we have in rule that we had in rules that we voted positively for 3 weeks ago now was the realignment of the roles of committees. So we went back and forth on this on a couple things. I did my best to engage with all the committee chairs to get their feedback, and what you have before you is the finalized language that that we all landed on. So I don't know. I know that a bunch of people were at some of the meetings. Some people weren't. So if it is of interest, I can go over sort of a rundown of what the what we proposed might change and sort of the broader framework. And if everyone basically gets it, then I will not do that. So any thoughts or questions or
councilors?
I just want to thank Tom for bringing this forward. I think we've made considerable progress. I remember way back at maybe the beginning of this term or the term before that, where we decided we needed to really define what the roles of the committees are so that future counselors will know what they're getting involved in when they're assigned to a committee. And I think this also provides at least somewhat the ability to maybe distribute the workloads a little better. And there were things in finance that we don't do snow emergency anymore. We got rid of them. So this is good. I think it's a good change, and I don't have any questions without it. I mean, any changes, it's great. And I like the fact that we're getting rid of the word subcommittee, because a subcommittee would be a subcommittee of the Rules Committee.
Yeah, that was
We don't have
something-
such a thing, so it's the word committee, I've always had that problem, so I'm glad.
We ended up discussing that during charter review, because in the charter it says committee most of the places, and we're like, when did we start calling them subcommittees? Because they're not. A subcommittee would be within a committee. So, yeah, we swapped that out.
Okay. So any other questions on these clarifications and definitions of the responsibilities of the committees? If not, then Councilor Zero.
I guess this is a question about preemption, and this is just my understanding, and I'm not 100% the rules maven, but I might defer this to you and to Councilor Rist. But it's my understanding that essentially an agenda item or specifically ordinance can be sent to any committee, or what we currently consider a subcommittee, by vote of the city council. And I'm assuming that rule would still preempt the general guidelines, so they could still be debated and if seemed appropriate.
Councilor Rist, yeah.
Do you want to answer it, Tom?
I'm happy to. Right, so yeah, we can send anything anywhere we want. And in fact, if necessary, we can just form a special committee at any time we want to deal with things. So things are very flexible. That being said, when we sit down at the beginning of the term and we're trying to figure out who's on what committees, there's some stuff about interests and skill sets. And also when you're on a committee for a long time, you tend to acquire certain skills and expertise in certain sort of subject matters. So of course, if something comes up where, normally this would go to property, but for some specific reason it really makes more sense to send this one to rules, then we just do that. I mean, there's nothing stopping us from doing so. But this just sort of will, take some things that really could have gone to either and advises that they go to a certain place to sort of keep the workloads manageable for all the committees, and B, it just sort of clarifies. Somebody gets elected and they're saying, well, what do I want to do? It sort of states more clearly. I think these line up a little bit better with what we've done over the last 2 years.
Councilor Rist?
Just a couple of things. One, the charter directs us to send measures that require it to a committee. It doesn't say that ordinances must go to a special committee on ordinances. And that said, the word ordinance has always been directing us to send something that has the word ordinance in it, or is typically an ordinance, to the ordinance committee. But we've also had times where we know we send the pay plan ordinance to finance because it's a financial matter, and now we're sending public safety matters that are ordinances to public safety. So we need to remember that when we look at, and this is for future presidents too, where is something going to go? It really is a matter of what is most appropriate by virtue of what is the topic in there. So I think these roles also, the other thing to remember is we establish our own rules. And if we vote 5-0 to move something that's not specifically or is specifically stated in, say, the role of the ordinance committee to something else, we're basically amending our own rules at the time. We're just overriding our rules because we're voting to do that. Because we make five votes does that. So we don't have to have a motion to suspend the rules and then do the same thing. We're doing it anyway because we've decided, in this case, this measure is going to go to a different committee. So I just wanted to say all that.
Okay. Additional comments, questions? So did you make a motion, or do you want?
I haven't. Could I make a single motion to amend rules 11D through 11I? Or should those be separate? That's
Sure.
fine.
No, I think so.
All right,
I don't see why not.
7:30, it's fine with me.
Well, then I make a motion to amend rules 11D through 11I, and sort of globally throughout Rule 11 to change the word subcommittee to committee.
Second.
A motion is second to change the rules 11D to 11I, and as changed subcommittee to committee. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. Good.
That concludes.
Okay. So I think now we're back to finance, Councilor Rist.
Finance Committee has one item of new business, which I will read, if I can find it. My apologies, you went faster than I thought. I got it right. Everybody's done it. I make a first reading of a supplemental appropriation dated 11/26/2019. The request is hereby made for the approval of the following appropriation. The amount requested is $284,800 to be transferred from retained earnings to be transferred to 3 different accounts which are not titled. $18,000 for 06044105319. 06044605319, $18,700, and 06044615909, 2020, $248,100.
Second.
I didn't finish. The amount
Sounded
requested
like
will be used for the following purpose.
7:30.
For the design, oversight, and repair of sewer outfall line from the wastewater treatment plant to the Connecticut River.
Second.
Okay. A motion second to move to finance the previously read supplemental appropriation. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Finally, the Finance Committee will not meet until the new term with the new council and the reconvened Finance Committee. So this won't be put forward as a public hearing until the second meeting in January.
Okay. Concludes Public Safety, Council Gomez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to make a motion to, for 90-day extension for the request of re-examine the traffic light and the Main and South Street intersection.
Second.
Okay, motion second for 9-day extension for the topic of the light at Main South Street intersection. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
That's concluded, Mr. President.
Okay. Appointments, Council Coniff.
Tonight, we met to approve 2 reappointments, to discuss 2 reappointments. The first one being Andrew Hunter to Parks and Rec Commission. So as I did in the past, on reappointments, I reach out to the committees that these individuals are being reappointed to and ask for feedback. I did receive from the chair of Parks and Recs a comment on Andrew Hunter and it was Ed Piziak. Andy serves as secretary of the commission and is also our representative to the CPA. He's an advocate of the department and is an asset to all of us, very dedicated and sincere. We approved Andrew Hunter for the Parks and Rec 3-0. Any conversation on Andrew Hunter?
Council Zarek?
Does he have a dog?
I did not talk to him on a reappointment, unfortunately.
Is that in the new rule?
I know, I'm gonna have to work on it. I don't know.
I think that's an important question.
I know, we're gonna have to add it to the template.
Yeah.
Seeing that we have some serious discussion coming up.
You okay?
Was that a motion?
I'm
Okay.
about to make
Okay.
one. Motion to approve Andrew Hunter to Parks and Rec Commission with the term expiration of 12/31/2022.
Second.
Our motion second to approve Andrew Hunter, Parks and Rec. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Then we had some ne'er-do-well named Tom Peak as a reappointment for Telecommunications Advisory Committee. Also reached out to that committee for feedback, got 3 responses. Harry Schuman, Tom Peak is the heart and soul of this commission. Without his dedication and leadership, the commission wouldn't have made the progress it has made. I cannot see Tom Peak not being on this important commission going forward. Paul St. Pierre, Tom is doing a great job on our committee. He makes thoughtful contributions in our discussions and helps guide the conversation to logical conclusions. Tom is a respected voice in the room, and we are lucky to have him working with it. Have they met you?
Clearly not.
Clearly. Dan Gilbert. Tom has been one of the driving forces behind the committee's activities and has personally arranged for many of our guest presentations. He's indispensable to the effort of the municipal broadband in Easthampton, and he should be reappointed to the Telecommunications Advisory Committee without any hesitation whatsoever. Also, it should be pointed out that this whole idea of broadband is Tom Peak's. And so the creation of this commission and this committee was something that he ran passionately on as a candidate. So it was very enthusiastically supported to approve Tom Peak 3-0 in our not our subcommittee, in our appointment committee.
Wow.
And he has a dog. And he has a dog.
Yeah.
Flora.
Yes.
Any other comments?
I just want to say, it was not my idea. It's something I ran on, and it's something that I really believe, but it's something that a lot of people have brought up and that other communities have been doing for a long time.
Okay.
Just
Thank you.
Good disclosure.
Thanks for that. That'll
Before anyone
save
thinks
you on
I'm
Facebook.
You
Too
invented the
smart.
internet
Yeah.
too, is that what?
I will make a motion to approve Tom Peak to the Telecommunications Advisory Committee, 12/31/2021.
Second.
A motion and second to approve Tom Peak to Telecommunications Advisory Committee. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
We had one abstention.
Right.
Also, I have a couple of new ones that I want to move to the Appointments Committee. Tom Malsbury, Board of Public Works, with a term expiration of 12/31/2022. Charles Connor, Council on Aging, the term expiration 12/31/2021. And Joseph Mezwar, all right, Building Commissioner, 12/31/2022, by way of motion. Move those two appointments.
Second.
A motion and second to move the three previously read appointments to Appointments Committee. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Also want to point out that this was also President McCoy's last appointment committee meeting, and as always, we are now seeking a clerk to write the minutes for those, so that's a bummer. We did set a meeting for January 8th at 5:30, recognizing that committee may look different, but the players will likely know who they are to attend that meeting in advance of January 8th. So, thus concludes.
Okay, ordinance, Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ordinance met on December 10th, and Councilor Krasinski was kind enough to come and give us some information on the engine brake ordinance proposal, and we had some residents there as well. And we have gotten very close to the wording for that. I think you can look for that coming early in the new year. And we also looked at some changes to the open consumption of alcohol. As once the wording is finalized for that, we will also be bringing that forward in the new year. So those are going to be two fewer things that are going to be on the ordinance agenda. And housekeeping here, it looks like a 90-day extension to the quadricycle ordinance proposal would be in order. So I'm going to make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Motion second for 90-day extension for the quadricycle ordinance. Additional questions, comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Thus concludes.
Concludes. Property, Councilor Kwasinski.
I think the last report out, Councilor Zaret reported out about our last meeting, so there's no update there. I think, again, we'll be looking forward to the dog park discussion. And in the Recreation Commission, I think that will require some work, and we'll be working on that in the beginning of the year. So that concludes.
Okay. Thank you. We have no old business or pending business. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
No? Nice try. Joe, you've given out enough of these that you know what to be recognized.
Hold it. Excuse me. Point of order. I actually have business we need to move, so
Yes.
calm down, people. Jeez. We had some unexpected information cross us in email today, and so I did want to make sure that there was some concern about whether it was something we should be discussing in email. But so all it was just a question around when we should discuss a specific topic. So I am now going to make a motion out of an abundance of caution and with full transparency to add the Easthampton City Council resolution pertaining to discrimination and tolerance dated January 3rd, 2018 to the agenda for the next City Council meeting on January 8th, 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll help you out there.
But I was going to say, did we need it? Was it a motion or was it just
It was a
just
motion.
telling?
It was a motion.
Okay. Okay.
Now I'm done.
Okay.
Now you may all carry on.
All right, Joe, let's go to the front. You know how this is done.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
What?
I mean, that's generally where we do it, right?
Oh, okay.
He's in the front.
Okay. That's right. And
So-
usually Pat Ruff is here with this camera.
I know. So, Joseph P. McCoy, as representative of the Easthampton City Council and as your vice president for this term, I would love to extend our deepest and most heartfelt thank you for serving for the last 14 years on the Easthampton City Council. It has been a pleasure and an honor to work with you. And I even knew that it was Joseph P. McCoy without looking at this. So it's been a long time.
Exactly.
And I think I can speak for everybody here that it really has been an honor and a pleasure to serve with you. And we hope that your time without us is just as fruitful as your time was with us. And so I would love to present that to you.
Want to.
Thank you so much.
Oh boy.
I've already had a chance to share with you my feelings of being your colleague on the council. It's a great city, but the entire House of Representatives wanted to send their congratulations as well. So, a brief citation from the House of Representatives. Be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to Joseph P. McCoy in recognition of your many years of service to the Easthampton City Council. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors. Over this 18th day of December 2019, offered by myself and Speaker Robert DeLeo.
Oh.
Wait.
But wait, there's more.
I have Rep. Carey to thank for this little.
Don't blame me.
I'm not blaming you. So, first of all, President McCoy, Joe, it's been an honor to serve with you and usher in my first term under your tutelage and presidency and mentorship. And it came to my attention that you were quite enamored with my campaign, my slogan, my 01027. So, look, we all have to respect the OG, the original GOAT. And so I had for you, Joe 1027. There's a little go in there as well. So this is the real McCoy. So.
Pickleball courts.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Get a shot of it. That's pretty good.
I would like to, say, and I want to thank the councilors before me, like Councilor Rist and...
Point of order.
Yes.
Some of us haven't finished.
Okay.
So if I may.
Yes.
In a heartfelt thank you, regardless of all the good things that you and your spouse have brought to the city of Easthampton. Joe and Stan, thank you so much for being the person behind the person. It has been a pleasure to serve with you and to have you be our president. One of the items I think that is really critical for a president is to have a sense of balance, a sense of understanding of all the counselors and of all the issues, and to be prepared to respect everyone's opinion. And I think you brought that to our council.
Well, thank
You'll be
you.
sorely missed, and I hope you continue that
Well, I'm sure.
for the rest of your life. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for those kind words. What I would like to say, because Councilor Rist, I think what has been one of my kind of stimulations or reasons is that there have been councils in the past that have not been as cordial maybe as what we have experienced. And so I think that was always been a driving purpose for me and this council, is not only are we colleagues, not only work together, but we be respectful, and I can honestly say you're all friends too. And so if there's anything I can say that I hope you continue, is continue that legacy of where you work together and you're friends and you work for the city, but because that you're so much more effective than I think some of the councils can be when it's cliquish and it's personalities. And so, please continue that. Continue to be good friends and work for the city. Now will someone make a motion to adjourn?
Move, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I vote. Okay. Thank you again. It's been an honor.